only 10 to 15% of people have actual self-awareness. Only 36% of people are emotionally intelligent. If you ever feel angry, ask yourself to find another good reason why. You can't navigate conflict with someone else until you can navigate it within yourself first. What we have to understand about choking is not a deficiency in your performance. It is an overfixation on your potential failures.
What's up, family? It's your main man, Coach Crump, with another great episode of the Boy Man King podcast. And I'm with my main man, Chizzy. Say what's up to the people, Chizzy.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, man? Thank you for joining us once again, man. Looking forward to this conversation. I'm super excited about our new guest, man. Let's get it, man. Let's get right into it, bro.
Yeah, but before we get into it, we got to give honor what honor is due. And we have a distinguished guest on the platform today, man. I want to introduce to you none other than the man, the myth, not only a father, not only a husband, not only a made man, not only a mentor, not only a coach, not only a published author, not only somebody who has given resources to over 600 things for people to learn about communication and conflict. This man also has a new published book that you got to get. Show it right now, Ryan Dunlap, How to Untie the Balloon. You got to tap in. But he's also a newly appointed executive director. He's also somebody who just crossed the 20 years of in the marriage game. He is a G-triple OG. Give it up for one and only Ryan Dunlap, man. Welcome to the platform, my brother.
Welcome, brother.
It's all good, man. I've done too much.
But man, I want to kind of contextualize our relationship, man. Got a lot of respect for what you're doing, what you built. But real recognize real, and I'm always honored that the fact that you as a man has decided that I'm going to show up, not just as a man who understands dynamics of mentorship and coaching, but you got coach. You joined Made Men to say, I want to grow on another level spiritually after being successful in your marriage and after being successful in your business and after being successful in your career. What made you want to now jump into a deeper level of commitment of personal growth spiritually?
But you know what, man? One of the things about being a young man who didn't grow up with a father is I think we're always searching for something. I think we're always looking for community. I think we're looking for connection. I think a lot of us end up looking in the wrong places, right? Trying to fill a godly need in an ungodly way. And so having an opportunity to do life with men who are anchored in an area of life that is untarnished is, I think, very important. And, I came out of the law enforcement space. And so you meet a lot of good men with bad habits. I came up in a space where there were a lot of good people around me who had challenges in their life that they hadn't really navigated. And so when I transitioned out of law enforcement and went into ministry and became a pastor and served as a pastor at a couple of different houses, what I found was that there was a constant when you had relationship with the Holy Spirit and relationship with men who were seeking a relationship with the Holy Spirit. So it was just looking for that consistency, looking for something and someone, and some people, I should say, to kind of keep me anchored and to be transparent, because I don't want to claim something I don't have yet. So the relationship that we've had with Change and many of the Made Men has been awesome. It's been great. I haven't crossed that threshold yet. But I've got a lot of great mentors, coaches in the Change community, and I love what they're doing. I love how it represents manhood, right? I think a lot of the way people are talking about what it means to be a man, there's a lot of toxic masculinity. I think there's a lot of aggression. I think there's a lot of hostility that comes with it because we don't know the difference between being strong and being hard. And a lot of us inadvertently become hard in our attempt to become strong. And I think there's a softness that comes with spiritual strength on top of what the world calls, manly strength. And I think you need both in order to live well.
Man, I throw it to you, Chizzy. One of the things that, your content has just been amazing, bro, about this whole conflict and communication is also something that on the communication side, Chizzy, you're a big part of as well. Kind of talk about Why are you doubling, tripling down, branding yourself as the conflict expert in that vein of communication? How did that all come about?
It's interesting. So, I mentioned I was in law enforcement for about 14 years, and in that space, I was a special victims detective, burglary detective. I was a forensic investigator, gang intelligence unit liaison. Spent some time as a hostage negotiator, did crisis intervention. So, by many respects, people would call me a communication expert. Now, I'm gonna tell you the hardest conversations I was having was at home with my wife. It's much easier to be a hostage negotiator than it is to be a husband.
Mm,
But what happened for me was when I transitioned in 2015, I left law enforcement and I accepted the role of director of security and then eventually pastor of life safety at Victory Church here in the Atlanta area. And I learned very quickly about myself that even though I was good at communicating in these situations, I wasn't great at communicating in these other situations. I was ruffling feathers. I was making people upset. Despite the strength that I had as a communicator, we've typically heard it that your greatest strength can also be your greatest weakness. And what I learned was that law enforcement gave me a technical skill for communication. What I needed was a relational skill for communication, how to bridge gaps and things of that nature. And ministry gave me that. So it was through that initial early failure in ministry of me coming in as a strong communicator, but a really rough around the edges people person where I had to kind of go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what's the issue here? I love people. I like people. But I'm pushing people away. So just went back to what I had known about difficult conversations and interrogation and the negotiation space, crisis intervention. And I went back to school. I got my master's in communication and leadership. I started learning leadership theory and communication theory. And what I learned was that conflict is, in and of itself, a miscommunication problem, and that you can't help people navigate conflict without helping people become better communicators. And so I
mm,
dedicated myself to communication so that I could then help people navigate conflict because there's no conflict that you can resolve, excuse me, without communication. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I had was I thought the communication was just what I did with my words. And I learned that there was a communication that I was exchanging with people that was nonverbal, my body language, my time was communication. What I did with touch, from shaking a hand to giving a hug, that was communication, right? So you've got chronemics and haptics and paralinguistics and kinesics and all of these different higher level nonverbal communication skills that I hadn't mastered. And that's
mm.
really what it was. Ministry exposed those things, and I got to do both. And so now I get to teach and train and coach others. Primarily, I'm working with high level executive leaders and their teams around the world, helping them understand the science of communication, what I call the art of tact, because you got to have the science, but you have to have the artful application of it. And so it's been dope, man. It's been cool.
I love
Well, I mean, it's a lot to continue with in that conversation. I'm thinking about the multiple times in all forms of relationships, mostly in my personal relationships on a personal level, where communication takes a different, let's say, trajectory. Theoretically, as you spoke about communication, when you learn the science of communication, that's one component of it. But I also think most of the challenges become in our personal relationships when there's an emotional component that's attached to
that.
either
Big
failing to get through a conflict or not being able to break through that communication barrier to get to a level of understanding. I think I would imagine, obviously I'm not an expert in this space, as you know, I'm not a clinician in this space, of course, but the emotional components, I think, are the most difficult parts to navigate as it relates to your family, your friends, your marriage, your significant other, because it's not cut and dry. It's not a 1+1 is 2. It's not really cause and effect in terms of the scientific components that are necessary to listen, to hear, and to navigate that communication space. Um, and I know I'm listening to you talk about your experience in law enforcement, and so the scientific components, um, you obviously mastered in a different space. Talk a little bit about the difficulty, if there was some, in translating the scientific components in a professional capacity as it relates to conflict and resolving challenges and communication, and how you support people in the development in their personal spaces as it relates to their relationships, their personal relationships, and sometimes even business relationships that can sometimes be driven by emotion. Was there sort of a learning curve in that space? Did you find that was difficult to navigate and you had to kind of reshape or rethink some of your philosophies as you began to explore more of the emotional side of the personal and the business sides of relationships and communication?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think one of the things that's really made it easy for me to step into this space was I didn't learn the theories and philosophies first. I learned practical application first. You know,
Good.
as a negotiator, as a hostage negotiator, it's all emotion.
Mhm.
When you're stepping into those difficult conversations, it's domestic violence usually was a lot of the standouts we dealt with, or someone was having a mental health crisis. That's a highly emotional space to be in.
Yeah.
Going to school and understanding the theory behind it, understanding the research behind it, gave me language for things that I'd already learned to do. And so that
Mm.
was really helpful because then
Good.
I was like, "Oh, that's what that is. That's a heuristic." Right?
Yeah.
Or, that's a form of a cognitive distortion, right? So I
Yeah.
know the language now, but I learned how to walk through it
Mhm.
before I understood the science behind it. Now, to kind of get on the other side of what you were talking about relationships is none of this matters in relationships until we understand how relationships make us behave, right? So this is the pressure principle. Pressure reveals character, it
Yeah.
alters performance, and it distorts reasoning.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so,
Hold on,
yeah,
time
yeah,
out.
I'm gonna
Wow,
get it to
time
you.
out.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
get it to you.
time out.
I'm
We're
gonna
going.
get it.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that again.
Yeah.
Come
So
on.
here's when I'm coaching people. Here's what I tell them: who you are when you're upset is who you are.
Mhm.
I don't
Mm.
care about the mask you wear. I don't care about how you present yourself. We're all in the business of image management, right? So who you are when you're upset is who you really are. So I want to know who you are at your worst
I had to learn
because
that
there's
the hard way,
something.
not to cut you. Sorry, let me interject. I had to learn that the hard way. Sorry, I need to say this really quickly because
Yeah.
in the basketball space, Crump knows this more than anybody. I have somewhat of an altered ego. And so the person that I am on the basketball court, you talk about mask, I had to really, really assess the individual and the challenges I faced on the court. Because as you said, when you're your angriest, you're your stupidest, and the deficits in your character come out when you're highly, highly emotional. And on a personal level, I had to learn that the hard way in some of the choices that I made, not just in basketball, but in relationships. So it's amazing for you to know, for me, having done the work to now feel validated in that if you're not able to address all of that stuff prior to showing up,
Mhm.
that person will always surface if it goes unaddressed when you're in a high conflict and a high emotional situation. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, so I'll let you
No, it's
continue.
because you've learned to rely on that form of who you are to get
Yeah,
yourself out of a high pressure situation. You've never had to think through it. You just got to bully your way through it, right? So that alter
right, right.
ego. I always say, if you ever feel angry, I know we're kind of going off a tangent here, but if you ever feel angry, ask yourself to find another good reason why. Angry is an acronym. Find another good reason why, because there's an emotion buried behind that. And anger shows up like your big brother at the playground. When you're not big enough to deal with your circumstances, anger shows up and does it for you,
Yeah,
right? So when you see a lot of men who struggle with anger issues, it's really this shortcut to dealing with problems because anger allows us to posture up. It gives us a
yeah,
false sense of security. It makes us feel stronger than we actually are. We don't have to deal with the emotions, which are a lot harder and more complex to deal with. But while we're doing that, we lose fine motor skills, we lose reasoning skills, we lose the artfulness of being a man under pressure. And so that's why we say pressure reveals character. It reveals who you really are. When the mask comes off, I get to see the contents of your character. It alters your performance. In sports psychology, we call it choking. And really what we have to understand about choking is not a deficiency in your performance. It is an overfixation on your potential failures. What happens is, a lot of research has showed that people who choke typically are thinking about the worst outcome, so much so that they create the circumstances that they want to avoid. So it's like, oh my gosh, I can't miss a shot. I can't miss a shot. I can't miss a shot. I can't fail. I can't let the team down. I don't want to do it. Oh my gosh, it's on me. And we go up and we actually live out our worst outcome because we're not focused on the thing that we know. We know mechanics.
And, hold on, and Ryan, I want to intro. Chizzy also can relate to that too. So I just wanted just to add in that he can relate to that part as well. Go ahead, continue on the
I
third.
picked up on it. I picked up on it. So I'm trying to speak y'all's language. So, if you put yourself on a court, right, this is why we do better in practice than we do in a game sometimes. But then in the game, sometimes we get into a rhythm, it becomes automatic. The more we win, guess what happens? The more we win. Because confidence comes in. We can rely on those mechanics and things. We're less likely to make mistakes. But when you start getting blown out, you start getting nervous, you start seeing things happen, what happens? Your performance decreases. Very
and your attitude increases. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Your posture and all of that.
Which goes to the third principle, right? Because now that your performance is decreased, now your reasoning diminishes because you're no longer operating out of your prefrontal cortex. You no longer have long memory that you're using. You don't have reasonability and rationality. You're using limbic brain. You're using fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You're using automatic processes to think, heuristic qualities. So the brain starts doing things automatically. And so these are the kind of things that we have to understand about pressure. It shows up at the most inconvenient time. And in relationships, to kind of go back to what Chizzy was saying in the first point, we're so much more likely to reach for those high emotions in a personal relationship. There was some research I read a while back that frames this as something called the closeness communication bias. The closeness communication bias. It's this idea that the closer you are to people, the less likely you are to listen to them.
Dang it.
Yeah. So, because if I've spent a lot of time with you, or you spend a lot of time with your wife, then what happens is you don't listen. You already know what you're gonna say, right?
Yeah,
you got a whole
arrogance or entitlement. Yeah, that comes with that. Yeah.
So the closest communication bias says that we're more likely to be in conflict with people we know, not because of who they are, but because who we've told ourselves they are.
Dang. Yeah. Hold on. Let's take a couple timeouts because you're kind of going through, and we need to. I want to go all the way back to because you said the pressure really reveals our true character, and then you mentioned that society has deemed this phrase the alter ego. Is it really an alter ego, or is it the real ego that we just, you know what I mean? Like, so it's not really an altered ego. Now we just really see the real ego, and then let's go back to connecting this to the relational space. How are we to reconcile when our partner or relational friend or child or mother have been exposed to this real ego? Because now the pressure, as they say, pressure busts pipes, or pressure creates diamonds. We really get to see who you really are when it hits the fan. I remember when my wife, to be a little bit transparent, we had a situation in our marriage where she questioned my love for her until a pressure situation happened. She's like, wow, I wouldn't have responded like that. She's like, I'm sitting here thinking love is but she's like, you a real one to love me through this. And I was like, I love you. She was like, yeah, but I didn't know because I thought love looked like this. And I thought love sound, but it's like a pressure situation will really expose, like, do you really love me? It's like, yeah, like it's not an emotional connection while I'm here. Like I'm here because I made a decision, I made a conscious choice. Talk about though when it goes left, when it goes all the way around. Like how do people, both from the side of the person who say, "Oh, that's what I'm really dealing with," and for the person who has the pride to come back and reconcile and apologize and go work on themselves and change. So talk about how do people navigate from both perspectives of saying, "Oh, I didn't know you was on that time," and then the person would be like, "Man, I did that." Accepting the reality that's truly who I am and going to do that work on myself to reconcile the relationship.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things that we have to navigate when it comes to all the conflict that you just described, which really kind of comes down to one thing, which is misalignment. Which is misalignment, right? What we have to learn to navigate is something I call pride pressure. It's like peer pressure, but it's only internal. It comes from inside of you. It's the pride pressure that says, I should probably go apologize, but I won't. I should probably go take responsibility for what I just did, but I'm not. I should go do XYZ, but I'm gonna wait for her to do it first, right? So it's that pride pressure. And this is what you have to understand about pressure. Under pressure, we seek relief, not resolution.
Ooh, come on, say that. Hold on, say that again. Say that again. Say that again. Say that again.
Yeah, under pressure, we seek relief, not resolution. So we will do things that make us feel better, but won't necessarily put us in a better position, right? And so we have to recognize these signs within ourselves. And most people aren't confused when they are weaponizing silence, when they are pushing people away, when they've got a boundary up instead of, a barrier up instead of a healthy boundary. Most of us know when we're avoiding our spouses, when we're not talking to them with the level of care. So we've got to work on ourselves. And so I've got, this, what I call a conflict clarity pathway. It's really these 4 steps that I use when I'm taking people from what you described, from chaos to clarity. And the first phase of this is helping people just regulate themselves, right? Because if you can't situate yourself around what you're dealing with and stabilize, then you're not going to be effective with any other step in this. So the first phase of this is stabilization. And so it's one of our key principles in this is you can't navigate conflict with someone else until you can navigate it within yourself first. Okay. So if you can't look in the mirror and take ownership for where you're at and what you're feeling, you're going to have a hard time. Now, here's why a lot of men fail at this. Only 10 to 15% of people have actual self-awareness. Only 36% of people are emotionally intelligent. 89% of people avoid conflict. So when you can't see yourself, you don't have any emotional intelligence, so you don't know how you make other people feel, and you're avoidant by nature, you are the impetus for conflict, not the solution for it. And so we have to learn to look outside of norms, and we have to try to live outside of these statistics and say, I'm going to be different. When I recognize a problem with my wife, I'm going to sit her down, I'm going to have a conversation. And so one of the things that we do, like even my wife and I, we do marriage coaching. Like when you say, my wife didn't understand how I loved her. And you've probably heard this language before. We always talk about what's your love language? What's your love language? We have to get really, really intentional about making sure we have, even if we don't have the same definition for what it means to love, that we understand what the other person's definition is for love. Because
but sometimes, to be fair to her and me, we made assumptions because the Google Gaga was there, right, Chizzy? It wasn't until Google Gaga left that it was like, what's this and what's that and why you? And then the pressure came and it exposes both good, bad, and indifferent. But it took years.
How long you been married?
I'll be 19 years.
Okay. Here's the challenge. At about 21 years, you've been through at least 3 versions of your wife, and she's been through 3 versions of you. We change about every 7 years.
And those evaluations have to take place on a regular basis. Through each phase, you have to evaluate those things constantly. I'm sorry, go ahead, bro.
No, you're good. So the Goo Gaga you're talking about, it's a honeymoon phase. It's natural. It's normal. In the honeymoon phase, when your wife, farts in front of you and you leave your drawers on the floor, it's cute. It's like, oh, we getting comfortable. It's cute, When you're 19 years in, it's like, yo, pick your drawers up. It's like, yo, go to the bathroom with that. You know what I'm saying? So, it's the same behavior. It's just we see it differently because of the closeness communication bias. We're now close. And we've got these unspoken expectations. And the problem with unspoken expectations is we grieve unmet expectations as if they were spoken and articulated and then intentionally avoided. Right. We'll make it up in our mind that you should have known better. And so then I blame you for not checking a box that you might not have even known was there. So this alignment is important. And it's not a one-time thing. It is a daily thing. In terms of, hey, are we good? Where are you at today? Then it's a weekly thing in terms of a weekly check-in. And then it's a monthly thing in terms of like, if you're not dating once a month to demonstrate love the way the other person feels it, then you're going to be living in parallel, not in unison. Meaning you're moving in the same direction, but on separate tracks towards separate outcomes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I never heard it put that way, but it makes sense for somebody who's in it day to day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we
I
take our
I I
family
can
for granted, man.
yeah,
We do.
yeah,
I was just gonna say this.
yeah.
One of the biggest challenges I have to talk to men about is that we love to evaluate what we do for our families. We rarely evaluate what that does to our families. I think a lot of men wanna get patted on the back for, like, "I'm making this money, I'm making these moves, I'm supporting you and the kids, dot, dot, dot." And that's cool. But the reality is, man, women love differently. And I know there's a lot, social media out there about a lot of women who are, like, out for money and dot, dot, dot. But here's the reality, man. The psychology of money is that it brings security because deep down, most women are looking for security.
Yeah.
And because we've been taught that having a lot of money is a secure place, what we label a gold digger is really a woman looking for a place of security. And so as men, we've internalized that and say, I gotta go out and get that bread. I gotta get that money. I gotta provide. I gotta do this. The reality is if you can make a woman feel safe on her terms, she'll live with you with a lot less. The money is not as important as we think it is. The
I was
success
gonna
is not as
yeah.
successful as we think it is. It's
Yeah.
just the easiest thing to reach for. You know
Right,
what I'm saying?
especially for men,
Yeah.
because that provider, that protector piece is most times attributed to the financial component of being a man or being a provider. And
Mhm.
like you said, like for the emotional components, provision still needs to be done. For the spiritual component, you still need to provide safety in so many different facets of the individual's development that we tend to just, prioritize only the financial component because it's the low hanging fruit for a lot of men, in my view. And it doesn't really allow for you to look intrinsically and say, all right, I may have checked the box in the financial component, but I may not be checking the box in the spiritual, emotional, psychological component, which causes me to really evaluate me. And it's challenging for men to really look at those other parts of their lives because, like you said, social media and society and community and the world will have you believe that the sum total of you being a man and being masculine
Mhm.
is mostly centered around your ability to financially provide. But a woman, like you said, she'll live with you in a cardboard box for all intents
Mhm.
and purposes if she feels emotionally secure, if she feels spiritually secure, if she feels like, you're her champion in those other areas of your life. Because the truth
Yeah.
is, 95% of the world is not going to be financially free. It's not like the rest of the world. There's only a small percentage of the world um, who's financially in a position to not have to worry about money. The rest of us regular folk have to just figure it out in the best way that we know how. So why are we attributing, you know, all of our success and the sum total of who we are to this financial space? Really and truly, that's statistically not even factual, and it's not even a reflection of how the general populace really functions and lives.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we do. We've got these pillars and these pedestals we put people on, and we pay attention to the 1%. We think it defines the 99%.
Facts.
So everybody, we've got a handful of people who represent the fewest of us in society, and we feel like I gotta be that person. I gotta
Yeah,
go make a billion
yeah,
dollars. You watch YouTube, man, it'll show you the biggest problem with young men coming up right now. There's so many YouTube videos from creators coming out talking about, "I'm on my way to making $100 million business. I'm making a $500 million business. I'm on my way to $1 billion enterprise." And what you find is that a lot of people, let's say they are successful, they find themselves in a place where they're safe, but they're unsatisfied.
facts. Yeah,
So then what?
yeah,
And so I think a lot of people, they just don't understand where to find that satisfaction. And I think we know, right? For those of us who are believers, we know that you're only going to get so much of that satisfaction from your spouse.
yeah,
It's not only so much of it's going to come from a person.
yeah,
yeah.
So you've got to have
And
that spiritual relationship with the Lord because that's where your sustaining
yeah.
satisfaction and joy is going to come from. And then
Mm,
because of your pursuit of Him, it shows you how to pursue
yeah.
them. And
Seek
when
ye
you know how to
yeah,
first.
pursue Him, you can pursue them, and that's the sustaining power that gives a wife, and again, I don't wanna speak for women. I think too many men get on platforms and speak on behalf of women. So when I say women, hear me, I'm regurgitating and reiterating the things my wife has said to me. I want to be clear about that, right?
Yeah.
My
Come
wife
on.
has
Come
articulated
on,
these
coach him, wife. Coach him up, wife. Coach him up.
listen.
Yeah.
So she has said, "Listen, I wanna feel safe with you. I wanna feel seen with you. I wanna feel secure with you. I
Mm.
don't care how much money you make." And to her credit, man, until recently, we didn't have any bread, you
Come on.
know?
Tell the whole
We had
story. Come on, tell the
been
whole
together since
story.
we were 15 years old, man. My high school sweetheart. I saw her when I was 15. When I was 16, I told her, "You're gonna be my wife." She laughed at me. She never left. You know?
Mm.
She's been through me almost being killed several times, no
Mm.
money. We've been through lost pregnancies. We've been through challenging pregnancies and
Mm.
all sorts of things, man. And so for her, I know
Oh,
I've seen it that if she has a safe place to put her head at night, and I'm not talking about the bed, I'm talking
mm.
about her world.
Yeah.
She
Mm.
will
Yeah.
she will rock with me through everything. And I
Here,
think
here.
a lot of men haven't been in a safe world, so they don't know how to create one.
And that's what, and Ryan, that's what I want to make a slight pivot. And I want to kind of even contextualize us reinforcing that we're talking to men. And I coach this, and I got it from the book "Hold On to Your Nuts" by Wayne Levine, when it talks about, like, you get it's in thirds when it comes to this thing of getting fulfilled as a man just in life. One third is from God, and that's a priority. That's number one. The other third is from mature, masculine, initiated men. And we're going to kind of go back to that. And the other third is women and children. But the other two naturally get you. God made you, men going through the transition that you've been through. So they like a step or two ahead. Low key a mentor and a coach, right? Women and children will never get you. So you are always responsible to teach and train them,
Mhm.
but you also are always responsible to be in a position of influence, not just authority. Talk about men who been, I'm the man, I'm the masculine, I'm at this age, I got a job, I'm making bread, right? But talk to the men who, like, we do the things that we thought was going to create safety, connection, commitment, only to realize that it was a lot of these skills that me and you talked about, Ryan, and Chizzy been married as well. Like, my wife taught me. I'm not gonna act like I knew this stuff. And on top of she teaching me, I had to get it wrong for years before I got it right a couple of times, right? And so, talk about to the men who are hearing this for the first time. We've been through a lot of different journeys as men, and I don't want to make an assumption that our listeners are all, been through it all, seen it all in their 40s, 50s, and kind of got it all together. I want to talk to that young 30-year-old, or somebody just got married, or just made six figures and just starting the content, just starting a business, but still feeling overwhelmed. Because if we be honest as men, there were times in our lives just managing being married, having children, having a job, and trying to push the envelope forward, that we would literally overwhelm. Talk to the men, Chizzy and Ryan, if you could talk to them about grace to grow in this space and what lessons you learned in that as well.
For me, I'll tell you, I didn't have a strong example of what it meant to be a man. My experience personally was hodgepodge. So, I had a couple of, you know, friends with their fathers who taught me some things. I think the greatest lesson that I've had that's been consistent has been my wife's father.
Mm.
And what I noticed about us growing up was that my wife, and I don't think she did it on purpose, but because she had a healthy household, mom and dad married since day one, she's compared me a lot to her father,
Mm.
and so I think early on I struggled with that, because again, this was unconscious for her. There was a level of stability and consistency that my wife was used to because she had it at home. And no one had ever showed me that. We didn't eat dinner the same way. I
Mm.
we didn't have the same expectations of career and growth. I was a lot more reckless than she was, and so I had to make a lot of mistakes. And I was that way, like you mentioned before. Oh, you made a little money. Are you happy now? We good. We making it.
Yeah.
And I think we just overemphasize the tangible qualities of what a man does. The
Yeah.
hunter-gatherer side of who we are as men makes sense to us. Imma go out, Imma bring some meat back, we gonna eat, everybody's good, because we have this old tribal mindset about what it means to be a man, me hunt, me eat, me feed. That's a part of it. But our women that we are trying to build a life with are not just housewives anymore. You know, they don't just sit around and wait for you to bring meat so you can cook it. There's a part of them that has to be nurtured. And so we have to understand our nature and our nurture as men. And I think our nature is to provide and to bring. What we have to do is have the grace to grow and change, as something what you were mentioning. And I think a lot of us are uncomfortable with that because we get married and find ourselves in relationships trying to be who we were before we got married. You know, we're trying to do single life in relationship. And so the thought process is that I'm going to treat you the way I treat a friend. My life isn't going to change because you're here, but that's not what it means to be a husband. You can maybe as a man, a single man, you can do that, but as a husband, as a father, who you are has to fundamentally shift and change. And this is what I tell people. Maybe it's not even who you are, because sometimes it's not who you are that changes, it's how you are. It's what you do with that energy. It's what you do with that person of you. It's what you do with that drive. It's what you do with that initiative. It's how you leverage it that makes, I think, the big difference for a lot of men. And we can have a lot of drive and pursue money. We can have a lot of drive and pursue our wife. We can bring her into our world. We can jump into hers. We can tell her what's interesting to us. We can learn what's interesting to her. We can build something and invite her in, or we can build something together and we can walk in it together. So it takes time. And, you know, we go back to this biblical principle of like dying to self. Most people aren't able to do that. But it's where we have to start. There has to be a willingness. This is, you can't make people do this, right? There has to be a willingness to become someone's person. You know, all the way back to Genesis. All the way back to Genesis, man. When Adam was put to sleep, the rib was removed from his body. God created woman and presented Eve to Adam. He did not say, "Hey, bro, here's your wife." That's not what happened. Adam received that which God had created, and he said, "This is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, and I shall call her woman." Adam had to make a choice to change, right? And so he gave her his last name. I always say, man and woman. He gave her his last name, right? So we have to really understand this idea that God is going to create somebody for you, and the creation process of this, my wife, my family, whatever this is, it's surgery. I heard somebody say this before. I don't remember who said it. He said, but it's surgery. It was a painful process. My man got put under the knife. A piece of him came out to this other person. So, you know, it's this idea, man, dying to self. A lot of people can't do that. And I think it's hard to do that if no one's ever died for you. If no one's ever sacrificed for you, if you didn't have a mother and a father who gave up everything they had to try to make sure you had everything that you needed, if you've never had a sacrificial love, it's hard to love sacrificially. If you've never been nurtured, it's hard to nurture someone else. And so luckily for me, my wife was patient. She was patient, and she told me how to love her, right? She didn't give me an indictment. She gave me a remote control. She's like, "Nah, partner, play that back." We don't do that. I don't like that. You know, don't love me like that. Don't talk to me like that. I don't, she used to say a long time ago, "Talk to me like you talk to the people at work." 'Cause she knew at work, I had to be the negotiator. I was anything. I said, "But I don't love them people." You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm
I
saying?
don't love them though.
Them. And so she said, "Talk to me like the people you don't love, because I don't like this. I don't like the way you love me." So it took time, man. And I'll share this last thing. I'm gonna be quiet. Just so you guys understand, you know, we've got 4 kids. We got a 16-year-old with 2 16-year-old twin girls, a 14-year-old son, and a 4-year-old son. Years ago, I asked my wife if she wanted to have a 4th child. She said, "Nah, never." And she actually told me, she says, "I will never have another child with you." And mind y'all, we weren't fighting. We didn't have a broken marriage. We've never struggled in 20 years. We've been dope for 20 years. So this kind of surprised me. She says, "Baby, you work hard, you grind, you take care of the family, everything. Like I don't have any issues." She says, "But I feel like a single parent. I'm essentially raising these 3 by myself because you always out playing G.I. Joe. So
Come on,
we
G.I.
can't
Joe.
we can't have another a fourth baby. It's not gonna happen. And so I remembered that, and I felt like such a failure. And that was really the beginning of me leaving law enforcement, going into ministry,
Yeah.
and becoming a pastor eventually, and abandoning the thing that I loved, and becoming the person God created me to be. There was
Come
this
on.
rediscovery of, "Oh, okay, God created me to protect and serve, but I put myself in that box. I can protect and serve as a father, I can protect and serve as a husband, I can protect and serve as a pastor. I don't have to have a uniform to do it." So I had to start re-engineering myself. And
Come
we didn't talk about kids for years until one day my wife got pregnant out of the blue. I didn't even know the parts still work like that, Crump. Uh,
on.
you know, so
Uh,
she got pregnant, and can I tell y'all, I felt so much shame and guilt. I mean, I remember sitting back when we found out she was pregnant, and I rocked. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I had to tell her, I said, "I feel so bad. I apologize, because I remember you said you never wanted to have another baby with me,
I was
and
gonna
now
say we
you're gonna
replaying
have
that
to."
conversation back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I felt so much guilt and so much shame. And, she looked at me, she says, "No, baby, I didn't wanna have a baby with him.
That person.
Ooh, ooh, come
You not
on.
him no
Come
more.
on. You not him no
Not
more.
him no more."
Yeah.
So,
Come on, you're not
it was
him no
this
more.
idea that like, "Oh, okay, so she's seen the growth and she's seen the change." And this is what I'll tell to y'all and anybody who gets this book, bro. Imma tell y'all, this dedication, I mean this. I wrote this. I said, "While the world gets to benefit from my teaching, coaching, and my writing, it's important for me, for everyone to know that my effectiveness as a conflict strategist came at a cost to my family, and I'll forever be in their debt, because I had to practice on my family."
Mm.
So, it's real for me, man. Like, and we were blessed. We actually lost that pregnancy, and it took us to a place of prayer that we hadn't been in a long time, and we got intentional about Aston, who's now 4. And, it's been the greatest blessing to our family, man, because my 4-year-old son represents a rebirth in myself as a husband and as a
Mm.
father, you know?
Come on.
So, I know that's a lot. It's a beating around the bush with
But
that,
thank
man.
you. But
No, no,
thank
no,
you for
yeah,
sharing.
no.
I'm gonna give it to Chizzy to close us out, man.
Yo,
I mean, I don't know how I go after that, but I would just say, there's an understanding purpose, and I think I'm gonna try to summarize kind of what you were speaking to in terms of your evaluation for self and finding out that your purpose through God was essential to this new development of yourself, so that now your shift, because I think for brothers, and I too, I'm coming post divorce, and so even for me, I think my shift for me was an evaluation of, all right, how am I showing up first through God? How am I reinvigorating and reaffirming my relationship with God first, so that He could kind of chisel away some of those bad character traits that I had, even in marriage, so that now I understand even why I need a wife, or why I want a wife, or why I want a partner, or why He provides a helper in that context. So I would say that, understanding your purpose through God first enables you to recognize that you know nothing and you are nothing until you're able to attach what His purposes for your life is, to you. And now you can just navigate the world and with a clearer mind, with a clearer view, and an understanding for what your goals should be for yourself through God first. And like you said, and then, when you're presented with a partner, it's not just the rose-colored glasses that you see when you see the physical attributes of this person. It's now, okay, she is provided specifically for me, and how do I nurture my purpose, and how does she nurture her purpose, through God, so that we both can kind of be in alignment in that way. Um, but I think for me,
Yeah.
I'm continuously reshaping that for myself, just being not newly, but entering into a situation, into a relationship. I'm still chiseling myself away through God, so I know that, all right, this time around, I'm a different person. I'm not showing up with the ego. I'm not showing up as Chizzy, as much as this is my moniker on the platform. I'm showing up as Che in God's eyes. You know what I mean? So I think for me and other men like me, I would just recommend just continuing to stay close to the word, stay close with God and seek Him first, so that, like as the scripture says, all these things will be added unto you.
Yeah, Ryan, man, it's been an absolute pleasure, bro. Like,
It's been amazing, man.
uh,
We could talk
man,
for this time.
you blow my mind, man. I knew, but because you only give us 90 seconds on the gram, I didn't really know. You know what I'm saying? Then I check YouTube. You only give 90 seconds on YouTube too. So I was like, man, the teens ministry is on flex. But I thank you for really availing yourself, bro, and showing the level of depth and expertise that you have in this area of conflict and communication. Tell the people where they can learn more about what you got going on and how they can tap into everything you provide on your platform.
Yeah, man. So right now we're really heavy in the social media space, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Everything is at Conflict-ish, Conflict ISH, helping people get their ish together. Foolishness, childishness, hellish attitudes, diminished productivity, all that ish we can help you with. So you can find us on social media. We're doing 90-second videos. It's a dose of conflict strategy every day for folks there. What we've got coming up though, man, we have the book that came out earlier this year. It's selling like hotcakes, and we're really excited about how this is going to help people transform the way they navigate pressure. So get that wherever books are sold. How to untie a balloon, a negotiator's guide to avoid popping under pressure. And yeah, man, we're excited about 26, man. 26, I think we're going to be jumping into community. I want to host a community for people, not necessarily just working on conflict. I think conflict is a hard sell for people, but for people who want to become distinguished communicators. I've learned some things as a negotiator, as a detective, and as a keynote speaker that I really want to jump into community with some folks and help them refine the way they navigate difficult conversations. So just stay tuned, man. Conflictist.com, conflictist everywhere. You know, it's hard to miss. I'm trying to get on that ET level.
Yeah. You on your way, brother. You on your way, man. And I want to say, man, follow the Boy Man King podcast, man. Boy Man King Talk on IG, man. We appreciate you guys. Like, share, and subscribe. If you want some more dope, amazing, incredible content like you have seen and heard today, tap in, man. And we got nothing but game and sauce for you, man. Men helping men to go to the next level, man. Y'all be blessed. Until next time, man. As we say on the Boy Man King pod, journey continues, man. God be blessed.
All right, bless.